Good morning, everyone. This is Mother TheoSophia. So, every time we meet, I have contemplation about where our conversations for today is going to go. And today, I want to talk to you about Jesus. I'm sure that you all have experience and know who he is. I'm sure that you all know that he asked that you go out and do more than he did. But what was interesting to me is I came across a lecture from him in the Masterworks from March 28th, 1953. And I could have just brought it into conversation, but I would like to read it to you. You know, when I was small and not knowing it was unique that I could see all the little people and would run up to the pond every morning. And Jesus would come and we'd be together. And sometimes he would take me up into the clouds and we'd walk and talk about souls. I wasn't aware at that time that that was different. Both Jesus and Master Babaji have been an endearing part of my everyday life, all my life. So if that isn't how it's been for you, I hope the intrigue of sitting in your heart space and opening it and allowing a humbleness of his words to come over you and the love. Understand that every word comes from a place of love. To touch you in a unique way, in an embracing way, and then to truly grasp that he's right there for you. He's not somewhere out into the cosmos and busy. His consciousness is so that he can be with everyone for those who choose to. So, if you get bored, I am sorry. But I think you will be intrigued and touched by the words of light that I'm going to speak from the Masters. From an address that he gave. I come to you today, my beloved brothers and sisters, with the love of my own heart and the blessed outpouring from my Master, from whose side I have come as he stood in the field of Kashmir this day, and endeavored through the outpouring of his feeling to give the nature of God and to convey to the pilgrims assembled that love which the Father of all life has for his children, a love that is unchanging and intensified in its pressure and power with every beat of the celestial heart that is of the great God, who never takes into consideration in that loving and worthiness or the merit of the one unfolded in his presence. The love of the Father has been my message since I was first vested with the glorious opportunity of bringing the joyous words to man, that their father was not to be considered a being of wrath of the Jehovah of the Jewish race, but rather the loving, kindly, and considerate one who had equal access according to the requirement of their individual hearts. I endeavor to draw before the consciousness of the people, that is, the Father's will, God's pleasure for each man and woman and child to enjoy the perfection designed by him, and but awaiting the acceptance of the consciousness in order to be made manifest through the life stream, which means unless you choose to embrace that, learn about it, it can't come and just be there for you. You must choose it. Speaking to all of you today, I speak to the old heart friends. There is not a blessed one within this room who I did not know through personal association, and sweet memories that extend back through centuries of time. And he means each of you. Some of you were with us in Egypt and proceeded across the great desert into the promised land. Some walked with me around Jericho, and your voice joined mine in that immortal shout of triumph as the walls fell. And some of you were with me when I was Zoroaster, and I contemplated the nature of the Father and embodied his light sufficiently to earn the title of the Mazda of that age. Some of you walked with me from the Tirana as we drew those great currents from the inner realms to prepare for the shrines, which have come to be such a great power in the Christian dispensation, and some of which have not yet even been revealed to the outer consciousness. And when I entered embodiment for my final mission, I would like to remind you that every one of you sat with me around that glorious table when the Lord of the world himself revealed the plan by which an initiate was to embody and bring the fullness of the nature of God through his consciousness. His word and his works, which would be the permanent record for the entire race of Christ embodied. Do you remember the solemn hush as the Lord of the world described that mission? Up to, through, and including the crucifixion, the resurrection, and my ascension? Do you remember the white-robed figures who rose as one to volunteer for that service? There were 36 who were qualified to come, and that of 36 my teacher and master, Lord Maitreya, chose me, myself. And he chose also my beloved mother and your great friend, Saint Germain, and we represented the Trinity through which the mission of the Christ is to be manifested. Then it was my opportunity to call forth my 12 disciples and those other blessed ones who would assist me in a future day. And together we all knelt before the King of Kings, and he placed his thumb on our forehead, his hand on the top of our head, and he blessed us, and the Lord Maitreya anointed each one with the spiritual oil of the cosmic Christ. Then we were designated to go into a particular temple until the Lords of Incarnation could prepare for us suitable timing with the stars, so that all might attain their majority at the proper moment. And of course, the beloved Joseph and Mary went along before I did, and some of the disciples too, and Elizabeth and John the Baptist, and all those who were to be prepared for my coming. And as each one left, we gathered together with that strong heart feeling and prayer that we might remember when the bonds of forgetfulness and the pull of the earth life had dimmed our vision, our vow, our promise. Finally, the beloved Morey and Katumi and those engaged in the study of the stars knew that the hour for my conception and embodiment was about to take place. And I shall never forget my parting from Lord Maitreya, the love and kindness in that great and beautiful presence as he placed his arms around me and breathed a heart prayer that I felt through his consciousness of my own being, for he knew how much depended upon my fidelity to my vow, and how much depended on my capacity to retain through birth and through those early years when I was not to be particularly favored among the sons of men. And my prayer, too, it rose with his. There is no deeper feeling, blessed children of light, than that between the master and the pupil. It grows through association, through the wonderful knowledge of the master of the very weaknesses of his chosen Chela. And as the Chela comes up over those weaknesses and for the first time surmounts a particular temptation, the joy in the heart of the master is beautiful to behold. And when the Chela can call the master father and the master call the Chela son, it is, it is as close a tie that as between the Father of all life himself and every Christ who has attained immortality. This is the feeling in the heart of the Guru when his disciples going forth, depending upon the strength and the light, which he has achieved through the Guru's training, endeavoring to render a cosmic service in which millions of souls will be affected adversely or otherwise. If there could be agony in heaven, I would say it is in that hour, and all of the love and strength that the light of the Guru enfolds the embodiment of the soul, and all the hope of the student ties to the heart of the master, until even after the memories are gone, that feeling of union with something beyond and above the consciousness of the senses remains. I was privileged, of course, to be welcomed by that exquisite Mary, and she provided for me through her aura the love and that protection and that spiritual sanctity through which I do not think I could have endured those early years when my consciousness was not yet developed enough to remember my Father's home, and I shall be eternally grateful for the strength of the beloved Saint Germain who stood by us. I can see as clearly today as in that time long ago, the strong hands working upon the yoke of an oxen, gently and smoothly preparing the wood that it might not give pain to the creature, for it was carved, for whom it was carved. And then the first glimmer of my memory began to return. Oh, happy, happy day, when out in the field I lay looking at the sun, and for an instant there flashed into my consciousness a remembrance of my teacher and my connection with the essence of Father God. I remember walking home slowly, and how my mother, looking at me, realized she could see it in my eyes that the Christ self was beginning to take hold of my small child form. So I can feel for you, my children, you who are yearning for that connection with your presence. You know how precious it was. You know how sweet the association for you to feel it. And it is my joy and that of my great master to offer you individually and collectively our feeling of oneness with your presence. May that be our Easter gift to you. I should not dwell on the well-known facts of my ministry, but I will bring to you your remembrance again that the close of this earth life you are going to experience the joy of ascension. Oh, how can these words describe to the blessed hearts incarcerated in the flesh the freedom that is to be yours? The joy that when there enters within your consciousness a thought or a design which will benefit the race, time or space or anything can limit your instantaneous accomplishment? For one who has passed consciously in the full waking, outer consciousness of daily life, under the brilliant sun at noon, and the presence of those whom I love more than life itself into the home of my Father, let me please, dear hearts, convey to you that all the suffering, all the discipline, all of the trials, and all of the renunciation of the earth life are worth that instant when the pull of the earth can no longer bind you. Purified soul, you do know freedom. Let me warn you that in your association with one another, you can prepare for this hour. And the most subtle of your tests will be the love. For instance, in my own case, there was Mary, who had taken me as an infant, and the glory of her aura raised my small form. And throughout all my ministry, welcomed and accepted every live stream that I chose to bring home, upon my word that they were of the Father's kingdom. And sweet John, who breathed not a breath for himself, from the instant that I called him, and Peter and James, and all the others who I knew, dear hearts, they were not equipped without my consciousness and my presence to live in the fullness of life. And yet, at that moment when the call came, I had to decide between the pull of love and the call of the presence. Your call will come. Prepare yourself for that hour, for that which you love most will be closest to you, and the subtle feeling had best be handled long before that day. And the constant leaving of your every decision to your presence. Not my will, but thine will be done. You are building that momentum, and you will not suffer such a tug of the heart, and you will save yourself much agony and much uncertainty. I love you, each one of you, with a love that is deep and sincere, and it is not based on what you are or on what you've been, but it is based on what you shall become. For I have seen you in the heart of the Father, and knowing the glory you had with him before the world was. But I anticipate the hour of our full manifestation of that glory, where you yet walk on the earth. Let us no longer be backward looking through 2,000 years of time for the miracles that can be accomplished today. The world groans with pain and agony, the sickness, disease, death, and corruption. And you alone are the hope of the world. Were I to have embodied again and again every 100 years up to the present hour, I would have denied you the opportunity to become that which I am. And there is no Christ being who does not allow the development of his fellow man into greater glory. I implore you, in the name of the Father of all life, to set into action these calls by which every one of you may walk through those hospitals, asylums, and restore man to his natural state. If you love me, do that which I have done, and this will be your answer to my words spoken this hour. In the name of the Father, in the name of my own life stream, and in the name of the great Holy Spirit of life, I give to you the blessing of Easter and the love of every brother and sister who has become the freedom which I am. Beloved Jesus. So, I felt that so powerfully. I hope you did too. So, if you have questions or thoughts or feelings, perhaps we can discuss them. I hope you could feel the energy through my voice come and touch you. I felt it was speaking to the time that perhaps many of you are living in now. In who am I? What am I meant to be? And in the simplicity It's to be however it is when you feel the presence of God, of Jesus and Mary, all those things inside your heart. As you connect more to your higher self, which has been an interesting thing to me. It seems to be a challenge for people to want to begin that journey with that part of God who's come into your world with you. Your first level of divinity to love, embrace, and to experience. Whether it's him or her, they have an understanding that just as Christ had a time when he can remember having that awakening, that illumination, that someone else was there within him. I'm hoping all of you have had that experience. But in that, allow there to be the excitement of wanting to talk and to know everything they could possibly share with you. Where have they come from? Where have they been? How do you know each other? Because in that, memories come to you, little bubbles of awareness and little orbs of consciousness will come around you and want to share with you more and more and more. So let me say good morning to everybody here for a moment. Thank you all for coming. Good morning, Chase and Carol and Gina M. Cavell. Barbara Ward. Good morning, Prime 3. Marby. Anik, good morning. Glad you could join us. And Carol. Press and play. Am I a Christian pastor? I am also a reverend, yes, but a spiritual reverend, not so much a defined thought, more the understanding of love and what spirituality means to people. Actually, that desire to become a minister, a pastor, whatever you want to call it, is what took me to Thailand and months of meditation, who I would never have thought that I would travel so far away from home, 23 hours. But that's how it began and how I met Babaji. And know that you never know how it's going to happen. You can't sit and figure and plan it out. For if you've decided to surrender your heart to become more a part of the whole of the God's community, not a church community, which could be, but it's beyond that. It's a consciousness of the love. It's based in love. Then you must become awake and listen and hear what's said to you or who you might meet. I've had times where I've met people who I worked with in Atlantis and we created work together. And usually most people recognize me. I just go to where I need to be. So it's been a profound experience, and that I hope this conversation today begins to let you have even a deeper one. There are reasons why things happen. There are reasons sometimes when a powerful being comes into your life. So let me continue. I don't want to forget anyone. Press and play as she asked that question. Tibia Ross. Yes, we are here. Thank you for coming again. And anew here. Well, that's a lovely thought. We are beginning, I would believe, to sit and exist in a raising of the new consciousness that is beyond that which it has been. Yes, Carol's saying, please type your questions in the chat. Why do we have so much suffering and poverty in the world? Interesting question, isn't it? It's because people have not chosen to awaken, to understand that God is there for them. Jesus is there. They instead follow the self-evolving ego, who is trying to let you have the impression that it will save your life, but what it does is move you into fear, and which that does is take you into the separation from the light. So, if those of us who are aware of the light can hold the truth that the light exists everywhere in everybody, and allow that to hold strong without a doubt, it will find itself into an experience around the world. When we empower the thought that there is suffering and there are children that are hungry, we need to know that food finds everyone who needs it. We don't have to know how, and we don't have to know why. But we can use the consciousness that God and all who have given us to us in the light to know truths. And too many people believe in the truth of what they're living and are not aware that they can learn to manifest whatever they want in life. The heart and the love are powerful manifestors. And that love, when you can feel it yourself, so powerful. You can be one who sends it out around the world knowing there's going to come a day when it's going to click. It's going to be different. So that's why we have so much in this world. People are afraid. They're not understanding how to not be afraid. And Christ is one himself who taught us there's nothing to be afraid of. For there's always Father's kingdom watching over you and there for you. Recently, I received a request to reach out through the other universal experiences of consciousness, looking for beings like us, similar to us, that had a higher consciousness that would come and help hold that truth for us because we needed help. And interesting enough, as I went through this process, I did meet a consciousness in a planet similar to ours, but their light radiated constantly. It was much a higher place. And they were going to start with meetings, whether or not they believed that they could help us, or if they would begin to choose to be like us. I don't know if you're all aware, but in the beginning, we were like an Eden. We were evolved. We were pure. And we were asked to allow beings who were in fear and not truth to come to where we are so that they could learn to be like us. And of course, we said yes. We would love to touch more people. Well, long story, I'm sure you understand what happened. We became like them. And that is where we still are somewhat today. Not to saying there's not growth, but we do not want that to happen again. This consciousness is very aware in their connection with God. So I do not know if it will be them, but I will keep looking. Because we need help for people who understand God and have that connection that can believe. You know, there's so many simple pieces about God to learn to do, and love is one. Love is simple. God is simple. But I think there's a great power in believing. And I know as I've done my work over the years, not a lot of people believe. They're on their journey. And I'm not saying that as a judgment, but it is part of our difficulty. I believe it's like he said in his talk. People need to have something to believe in, something they see that is truly more powerful than they are. There is something, there's many things that can pull you out of where you are to let you be embraced by the beauty. So let me see here. What is that? This nation is a very wealthy nation. Just travel to other countries where you will see real poverty. Yes, I understand. Don't know how Miss Ross has that. But you know what we have to come to? What is wealthy and what is poverty? Do you see that's still looking at the world as to what it shows itself to you as the truth? And we have to become peoples where we look inside to the light of people. Do you remember back when they used to do commercials and show all the little children that were so hungry? They were all masters. You could see how their eyes were so much powerful light. They're the ones who chose to come to bring that message to so many of us so that we would help. You have to understand there's always ways for God to touch people. But what do we want to believe? Do we want to believe in this reality that's here before us and what it shows to us? Because spirituality is a different reality. It's one of light and how you begin to see yourself and feel your aura and see other people. It's all much different. Okay, so Gina M, really? I didn't hear this before. I don't know which of what I've spoken you're talking about, but if you're talking about when the laggards come, it's very well known in the spiritual arena. That is why they gave a veil of forgetting, hoping that as people were born, they would forget the laggard part of them. Well, it still didn't work. We still, as we grow, can remember the past lives and some of the unenlightened things we've done. But imagine if, again, there'll come a time when there will be just light beings born. Someone like Buddha. You know, it will happen. We are on that journey. So you must not ever be afraid. Never give an empowerment to the ego to take you down that journey to try to say to you, oh, but look over here. This is true. No, what's true is the deepest part of your heart and to the level you can really allow it to heal. Yes, Miss Ross, I agree with you. We are very blessed. The moment is now. What an amazing experience you went through. I got to be honest, I've had many. None that I asked for, thought about, but each, what I'm stopping is I'm seeing an impression I want to share with you. When we were in Thailand, we were taken around and we got to walk the same walk Buddha would do into the big temple where he meditated. We got to sit in that same place. And then later, after my husband got sick and had to go home, our teacher, there was 5 of us left, took us down underneath the streets, like a little cavern. You crawl in, and left us there for the day. Because there was a time in Buddha's life, that's all he had, was to be under a street and meditate. And I have to say to you, you could hear the animals scratching and all, but you see, there was no fear. That was the lesson. And here today in our world, can be very difficult if people aren't understanding that the journey is going to come and try and bite at you, that ego. But you must be strong and choose, no, I am the light. I can only see the light. And it will begin to disappear and begin to not ever show itself to you again. You see? All right. Yes, the pure Eden. Yeah, we were all there. I feel comfortable that I can say that. And you realize that you're still afraid to go back to that, you see. It's a fear. Because you don't know, well, who was I? What was it like? What did I do? My only response to you is that it was love. And understand there was nothing to do. It was be the light that you are. So Chase asked me, what is my wish for the world? My wish for the world from the deepest place of my heart is to know the truest experience of love and the touch of God. For it would change the world. It would change what we give power to as disease and how we are so afraid of getting it taking away our life. Do you understand? There is nothing that has the ability but your belief system and what you do with your consciousness that can harm you. Because in truth, you are a tremendous amount of light. Let's see what she's saying. Why would it be a fear? This life is not something that I feel. Oh, something got in my way. Oh, stop. Why would it be a fear? This life is not something that I feel happens in. That's all I've got. Something that I feel happiness in. Why does the ego take you into fear? Well, if you're not in ego, then happiness would be that which you find. But we must understand that there is times when it can seem to be happiness in. This life is not something I see. It was like the last thing and I couldn't really see it. Why would it be a fear? This life is not something that I feel happiness in. Well, fear is the simplest way to speak of darkness. And it is what prevents you from happiness. There must be something you're afraid of why you don't allow it to happen. That this isn't enough, or this won't work, or how they care about you is different. And it isn't about other people, it's about you. How do you care about you? Most importantly, everyone here needs themselves. They need that purity and that capacity to know that every 144,000 piece of you is drenched in the depth of love that you've come to know. And it takes the journey. It's not going to happen me speaking it. But in that, you must begin to embrace those things in your love that do not make you happy. Ask what the lesson is. I didn't get here overnight. I've literally studied 34 years of my spirituality. And in finding these places inside myself, understanding the patterns that made me how I was in the separated self, and how I thought I needed love from other people, or I needed things in a different way. No, that's not the truth. I can be in this wondrous experience of light, and that which I need in the world will come to me. Always. It does. And it may not look at how some people think would be divine, But none of our lives are dependent on what other people think. And if the fulfillment and the heightened ability to have laughter comes from deep within and the knowingness, and you can say, yeah, I believe. I know this is it. How wondrous is that? Thank you, Gina M. It is amazing. And it is why I can be here and talk to you. And we're going to talk more and more because knowing it helps you believe. Is the meaning of life the same for animals and humans? I do know when we met the little Buddha, the 8-year-old in Thailand, when we sat down and he started talking, and there was an interpreter, and she said, he wants you to know, look at the tree right there. He hit that tree as a goat before he was shot into his mother's belly. Well, you have to know that totally threw all of us off because we really weren't taught that we can be an animal and become a human. But that is what he told us. And that wasn't the first time he told us. He says, come, touch this tree. This is where I last was a goat. And it jarred me right into my mother's belly. Now, I'll tell you his story quickly. There was a great light being called the Black Monkey. And he had 4 powerful gifts. And it was time for him to return to heaven. So due to their study of light, there were 4 young boys that were each given a gift. And the gift this young Buddha that we saw received was the ability to heal with his heart. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about that before. But one was about flying. One was about perception. I do not remember them all. It's been a long time ago since we were there. He's probably a man by now. But I do know he spent his days going to the hospital healing people. We all got a healing. I asked because I had fallen and my foot was black. I couldn't hardly walk. And I was told he could not heal feet because he was a Buddha. So I sit there kind of feeling, well, why didn't somebody tell me? And I look up and he is radiantly smiling at me. And my friend nudges me and all these little black bugs were running out of my foot into the ground. And I woke up and walked fine. So he didn't have to touch me. This was his gift. He sent me his heart light and healed my foot. So I would assume I'm not answering your question that you're asking, but I know when animals leave, they go to Venus, where Sanat Kumara is from. And a lot of times they're here. They take on the issue for the human, like cancer and things, so they don't have to suffer. So there's an interesting relationship, which I am observing and always learning more. You're going to learn more every day because there's not enough us yet to know it all. There's a growing path. I grow every day. So animals see through pictures. If you give them an image, they will understand that you can begin to talk with them instead of perhaps how, if you're a psychic, talk a different way. They see through pictures. And maybe you can become a bird. It's going to depend on where your consciousness moves to and the awareness you come to what heaven is. You see? Any other questions? Well, I guess we're all sitting for a moment in a quiet place inside our heart, knowing there's a sea of love that flows in there. And within your heart in development, it becomes an ocean of God's love that you can actually go to and take a dip and feel so refreshed. There's just so much to understand. So, does anyone have a final question? And I'm glad that you all came back. And thank you, Press and Play. I hope you come back. Make sure you subscribe. Christina, good morning. Yeah. All right, another question. How do I deal with regrets from the past? Well, I do not regret the past. And the masters taught me while I was in Thailand. Because when I came home, the husband that I had at that point, I knew we would not be together anymore because my heart had changed. I had changed. And I worked with him for a few weeks. And that was the main thing, is I could not leave until I could leave with no regret. So it is for every soul to begin to understand there is a loving way to embrace a piece of what you think you would regret. So I had to look at what piece would I think I would miss and how my life would change. Is there any of that I would then become angry about if I left? So I went through that. And that's how I did it, by clearly being honest with myself and then finding the love within myself, which you can see would have only expanded my heart. But while we were in Thailand, we got the heart mantra, which totally changed our lives. And we all came home differently. And when I mentioned to the husband at that time that, remember, we were perfectly happy, we both thought, that he patted me on my shoulder when I walked in the door, if that tells you anything. And I knew that's all he would do. And I said, after my couple weeks, I said, I just don't think this is working anymore. I think we can find something more in our own lives in a different way. Well, I was ready for a fight. And Mother Earth told me she would stand behind me. And his comment was, I think you're right. You have to know I was not movable in that moment. But you see, that moment really helped me to believe yet to a deeper level that all they had said to me and worked with me and told me was true. That you want to make sure you don't have regrets. But if there are, you can still work through them and bring them into love. For you must bring this wonderful morsel of light that you are to a fruition of light. And love is the magic of God. His light, as it moves through you, is the magic. Not like a magician magic, but a wondrous of magic of healing. All right. Barbara Ward, thank you. This was a very enlightening discussion. You mentioned a number of ascended masters. Perhaps one day you can tell us more about them and their relationship to Jesus. Yes, and I was also blessed. My higher self was Joshua, the Joshua that used sound to bring down Jericho that he mentioned in his. And he was close to Jesus. And I never really understood why for a long time until I began becoming a sound healer and singing the light language. And I knew it was Joshua teaching me all those things. And the vibration. And I believe sound is the healing in the future. Okay. Jay says, you are such a gift to us. Thank you for bringing clarity to my questions. You're very welcome. And let's give God and Mother gratitude for supporting me getting here. Because you're why I'm here. It's like keep going forward. Take. I'm sorry, Miss Ross, I'm not understanding your question. Let me see if there's more to it. No, can you say it a different way? Annie says, thank you for sharing all your love with us. Many blessings to you. Thank you. Many blessings, Annie. Take different direction. Well, it is possible directions change. So you want to become contemplative and get immersed into your heart so it responds to you and your higher self. You really are not alone. And if you have a teacher to help you, the greatest direction to take is to let your life be more about love in every way and see where that takes you. That can never be a difficult or wrong way. So thank you for coming today, Miss Ross. All right, Kelly Scarborough. Hello, joining late. Well, you might want to start at the beginning and get the whole thing. What do you think? Where we went from 8 to 11. So there's a lot of you missed. And I thought it was a beautiful morning. Jesus came and I read his dictation from another time. And yet I'm sure you all felt him here with you. Am I right? Yeah, there's always many around me. But we will talk about that another time. There are more than you realize that are working with each and every one of you. All right. Looks like that's a wrap. I will be back on Friday at 10 and have some questions ready for me. All right. Because we'll all grow together. Many blessings. Be love.